The HOA president completely lost it when my gate, my pride and joy, left a scratch on her precious SUV. She barreled into my property, ramming the gate with a fury I didn't think possible, then had the nerve to demand $3,000 for the damage. When I stood my ground and said no, she spiraled into a rage, threatening to snatch my house right out from under me, spreading vicious rumors like wildfire. But the real shock came at midnight when I caught her creeping around with something that sent a chill straight to my bones. My 74-year-old grandpa, a retired cop with a hawk's eye, reviewed the security footage and uttered 4 chilling words. "Call the boy now." What unfolded next shattered her world. The cops swooped in, towing her SUV while she shrieked like a banshee, but that was only the start of her epic downfall. Little did I know Sheila's grudge ran deeper than a scratched bumper, and it's a story worth unraveling. Let's rewind. 2 years ago, I moved to Maplewood Heights from Harrington, craving a fresh start after losing my dad. The house came with a hidden gem, a private ranch road, technically outside the HOA's grip. Dad's voice still echoes in my head. "Never let anyone trample your rights, son. Stand your ground like it's the last piece of earth you own." So I installed that custom automated gate at the entrance, a 10-foot masterpiece of reinforced steel with decorative scrollwork Dad sketched in his final months. He'd spent hours perfecting it, spinning tales of the ranch he grew up on, where a sturdy gate meant the difference between safety and chaos. I thought I was honoring his legacy. Turns out I'd just painted a bullseye on my back for the neighborhood's self-crowned queen. The first warning letter hit my mailbox that Tuesday morning, stuffed with menace. Which city of the United States are you watching from? Drop a comment and share with us if you have any confrontation with the HOA. We will narrate your story. On our channel, all the subtlety of a brick through a window. Dear Mr. Baxter, it began in Sheila's pretentious script. Your recently installed gate violates HOA Regulation 17.3 regarding uniform neighborhood aesthetics. You have 14 days to remove. This eyesore or face penalties. I actually laughed out loud because my property wasn't even under HOA jurisdiction. But Sheila Thornton didn't care about little details like legal boundaries. She'd been taking heat from the board for failing to control the ranch area properties, and my gate was her chance to prove she could bring anyone to heel what I didn't know. Then was that Sheila's vendetta went deeper than professional pride. A neighbor later told me that she'd tried to buy my property before I did planning to subdivide it into 3 lots for a tidy profit. My purchase had cost her a potential 6-figure payday, and in Sheila's world, that was an unforgivable sin. The real drama started 3 days later, when I heard the unmistakable crunch of metal on metal. I rushed outside to find Sheila's pristine white SUV kissing my gate, a fresh scratch running along her passenger door like a silver racing stripe. She was already out of the vehicle, her face purple with rage, designer heels clicking against my driveway like a war drum. "Your gate's a hazard," she screamed, jabbing a manicured finger at me. "Look what it did to my car. You'll pay for this damage, and then you'll tear down this monstrosity." The neighbors had started gathering, drawn by the commotion like moths to a very loud, very angry flame. I could see Greg Sullivan peering over his fence, his eyes darting between Sheila and me, like he was watching a tennis match. Behind him, other faces appeared in windows and doorways. The Smiths, the Rodriguezes, even old Mr. Patterson, who rarely left his house. They all had that same look, a mixture of sympathy for me and fear of Sheila. I kept my cool, even managed a smile that probably looked faker than Sheila's concern for neighborhood safety. "I'm so sorry about your car, Sheila," I said, pulling out my phone to record. "But you did drive into a stationary gate on private property. Maybe we should call your insurance." Now that's when Aaron Harper, my neighbor and fellow HOA rebel, appeared with her professional camera. "Don't worry, Ryan," she called out cheerfully. "I've been documenting the whole thing for my photography project on suburban life." Sheila's face went from purple to white faster than a traffic light, but she recovered quickly, straightening her blazer-like armor. Walter, my 74-year-old grandpa and roommate, chose that moment to shuffle onto the porch with his coffee. "Sheila is out for blood," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "But she's messing with the wrong guy my grandson here learned from." "The best me," he winked at me, and I knew he was already plotting something. Walter might have been retired from the force for over a decade, but he still had more connections than Sheila had. HOA violations to hand out. Greg Sullivan caught my eye from across the fence, and for a moment I thought I saw sympathy there, but then Sheila barked something at him, and he quickly looked away. The confrontation ended with Sheila slapping another letter into my hand, this one handwritten and shaking. With her fury, "You have 48 hours to remove that gate," she hissed, "or I'll make sure you lose more than just a piece of metal. I'll take your land," as she stormed back to her damaged SUV. I unfolded the letter and felt my blood run cold. She wasn't just threatening fines anymore. She was threatening legal action to seize my property. But what really got my attention was what I learned later that evening from Aaron. Apparently, Sheila had been sued before for harassment in her previous neighborhood. In Clifton, she'd lost her real estate management job for overstepping boundaries, and now she was trying to rebuild her empire. Here in Maplewood Heights, she actually got a restraining order filed against her. Aaron told me over coffee the family she harassed had to move. She made their life hell over a basketball hoop in their driveway. The pattern was clear. Sheila didn't just enforce rules. She created conflicts to feed her need for control that night. I was reviewing the footage from my security camera when I saw something that made my skin crawl. There was Sheila creeping around my gate at 2:00 in the morning, gripping a flashlight in one hand and what looked like a knife in the other. Her eyes were wild under the moonlight, and I could barely make out her whispered words, "You and your grandpa are finished." She ran the knife along the gate's mechanism, and suddenly her accidental collision made a lot more sense. In the group chat she'd accidentally included me in, her message was crystal clear. That gate's gone by Friday or Baxter's done. My hands trembled. "As I saved the footage, she's out to destroy us tonight. Can I stop her?" I didn't realize Sheila's plan was to break me, not just my gate, but her next move made everything crystal clear. The emergency HOA meeting was called for Thursday evening, and the community center was packed tighter than a Black Friday sale. Sheila stood at the podium like a general preparing for war, her power suit pressed to perfection and her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice dripping with false concern, "we have a serious safety issue in our neighborhood." She slammed her fist on the podium for emphasis, making half the audience jump. "Ryan Baxter's gate is not just an eyesore, it's a danger to our community." The PowerPoint presentation behind her was professionally done, complete with ominous red arrows pointing at my gate and statistics about automated gate accidents that I later found out were completely fabricated. She'd even hired a graphic designer to make it look official, spending HOA funds on her personal vendetta. She pulled out blown-up photos of her scratched SUV like evidence in a murder trial. "This gate attacked my vehicle," she declared conveniently, leaving out the part where she drove into it at 2:00 in the morning with a knife. "What happens when it's one of our children? What happens when little Timmy from Oak Street gets caught in its mechanism?" the crowd murmured anxiously, and I could feel the tide turning against me. Greg Sullivan sat in the front row, sweating like he was in a sauna. Sheila's eyes locked onto him like a hawk spotting a mouse. "Greg, as head of our safety committee, You've inspected the gate. Tell everyone what you found. I noticed how she emphasized safety committee, a position she'd created just last week, specifically for this moment. The manipulation was so transparent, yet people were buying it. Mrs. Thompson actually gasped when Sheila mentioned children clutching her purse, like my gate might leap across the neighborhood and attack her grandkids. Greg stood up slowly, his massive frame trembling slightly. He was built like a linebacker, but wilted like a flower under Sheila's glare. The gate, it violates multiple safety codes, he stammered, reading from a paper that shook in his hands. The automated mechanism lacks proper sensors. The height exceeds regulations and the proximity to the road creates a hazard. Every word sounded rehearsed, like he was reading a script written by Sheila herself, I knew it, Aaron knew it, and judging by the way Greg couldn't meet anyone's eyes, he knew we knew it, but knowledge and proof were two different things. Entirely based on this official safety report. Sheila continued, her voice rising with manufactured urgency. I'm proposing immediate action. Mr. Baxter must pay triple damages for my vehicle, that's $3,000, and remove the gate within 48 hours all in. Favor hand shot up around the room like prairie dogs, but I noticed not everyone was buying it. Aaron was furiously taking notes, her camera capturing every moment. A few other neighbors looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats like they were sitting on thumbtacks. Mrs. Carter from Elm Street actually shook her head, though she didn't dare vote against Sheila publicly. What struck me most was how rehearsed it all felt. Sheila had coached her supporters, giving them specific talking points when Mr. Jenkins stood to support the motion he read from an index card, stumbling over words like liability and municipal ordinance that he clearly didn't understand. This wasn't democracy, it was theater. And Sheila was the director after the meeting. I caught up with Greg in the parking lot. He was loading his toolbox into his truck, avoiding eye contact like I had something contagious. Greg, I called out, we both know that report is bogus. My gate has every required safety feature. Why are you doing this? He finally looked at me and I saw real fear in his eyes. You don't understand, Ryan. Sheila, she threatened. My shop said she'd have me investigated for permit violation, shut me down. She did it right in front of my daughter. Oh man, I can't lose my business. I'm sorry. He climbed into his truck and drove off, leaving me standing there with my fist clenched and my mind racing. Back at my house, Walter was waiting with Aaron in the living room. Got the whole thing on video, Aaron said, transferring files to her laptop, including a very interesting conversation between Sheila and Greg. Before the meeting, she basically scripted his entire testimony. Walter leaned back in his recliner, a sly smile playing on his weathered face. That woman thinks she's untouchable. Reminds me of a corrupt captain I knew. Back in '87, you know what happened to him? Lost everything. When someone found out about his side deals, her SUV's days are numbered. Kid, trust me on that, he had that look in his eyes, the one that meant he was already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I spent the rest of the evening crafting my response. I sent Sheila a formal email requesting itemized proof of the damage costs and documentation of the safety violations. Dear Mrs. Thornton, I wrote, keeping my tone professional despite my urge to type in all caps. I'm happy to address any legitimate concerns about my gate. Please provide the following: detailed repair estimates from certified mechanics, specific municipal codes allegedly violated, and proof of your HOA's jurisdiction over private ranch road properties. I look forward to resolving this matter properly. I hit send and immediately heard my phone buzz. Sheila had already responded. You'll get what you deserve. Baxter, the next morning, I found something that made my blood boil. Hidden in my doorbell was a tiny camera, no bigger than a button, Sheila had been watching my house recording everyone who came and went, but she'd made a mistake. The camera was the same model sold at Greg's electronics shop, and the receipt would have her name on it. I carefully removed it, preserving any fingerprints. And that's when I noticed her car parked down the street. She was on the phone, and even from my porch I could see her animated gestures. My security mirror picked up audio, and when I enhanced it, later her words chilled me to the bone. "Send Vince tonight, Baxter's house is next." Her eyes gleamed with malice as she drove away, and I realized this was about more than just a gate. The mention of my house, specifically, not just my property, suggested something far more sinister. Was she planning vandalism, arson? The way she'd said next implied my gate was just the beginning of whatever twisted plan she had in mind. She's sending someone to wreck my home. How do I stop them? I never guessed Sheila's bobby pin would be her fatal slip. But first, let me tell you how she tried to destroy my reputation. The rumors started spreading. Through Maplewood Heights, faster than wildfire in August, did you hear about Ryan Baxter's gate became the neighborhood's favorite gossip. According to Sheila's version of events, my gate had nearly decapitated a child, traumatized a delivery driver, and caused 3 accidents, all complete fiction, but told with such conviction that people started believing it. She even produced a blurry photo of some random kid crying near a gate, claiming it was evidence of the trauma I'd caused. The way she spun it, I was one step away from being a child endangerer. What made it worse was how she used social media. Despite never mentioning specific platforms in our HOA meetings, Sheila had her minions posting in every local community group, sharing the same fabricated stories with slightly different details to make them seem authentic. One version had a kid's bicycle crushed, another had a dog's tail caught in the mechanism. None of it was true, but the sheer volume of lies created an echo chamber. Of false outrage, the official safety fee notice arrived on Monday morning, hand-delivered by Sheila herself with a smile that would make a shark nervous. $1.
"So I'll draw due immediately," she announced, loud enough for the entire street to hear. "This is just the beginning. Mr. Baxter, the safety committee has determined your gate poses an imminent threat to neighborhood children." Behind her stood a small group
of HOA board members nodding like bobbleheads in an earthquake. "We have witnessed testimonies," she continued, waving a stack of papers, "from concerned parents who've seen their children frightened by your mechanical monstrosity. The papers were probably blank, but the damage to my reputation was already spreading." I stood there in my doorway, coffee mug trembling in my hand as drops splashed onto the fee notice. "They think I'll back down," I muttered, watching the brown stain spread across the paper, like my anger spreading through my chest. My dad's voice echoed in my head, "When they come at you with lies, son, you fight back with truth." But truth felt like a weak weapon against Sheila's propaganda machine. Greg drove by in his truck, slowing down to watch the spectacle. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away, but I caught the shame written all over his face. He knew this was wrong, but fear kept him silent. I noticed his daughter in the passenger seat looking at me with curious eyes. Kids always know when adults are being unfair, and the confusion on her face said everything. How do you explain to a child why grown-ups lie? How do you tell them that sometimes the people in charge are the biggest bullies of all? By afternoon, I'd had enough. I stormed into the next HOA meeting like a man on a mission. Sheila's lies are as fake as her concern for children, I roared, slamming my fist on the podium hard enough to make the microphone squeal. "Show me one police report, one insurance claim, one shred of evidence that my gate has hurt anyone. The room went silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. Sheila sat in the front row, her fingers nervously fidgeting with her hair, twisting a bobby pin that caught the light. "Mr. Baxter," she said, with fake sweetness, "your aggression only proves you're a danger to this community. Perhaps we should discuss anger management classes as well." That night, I set up a hidden camera in my bushes, disguised among the ailas my dad had planted. Years ago, something told me Sheila wouldn't be able to resist another late-night visit, and I was right around midnight. My phone alerted me to movement there. She was creeping around my gate again, but this time she wasn't alone. Vince Malone, the owner of the repair company that had estimated her SUV damage at that ridiculous $3.00, was with her. He was carrying something that made my blood run cold, a gas can. Even through the camera feed, I could see the malicious glint in Sheila's eyes as she pointed at various spots on my gate. They spent 20 minutes examining the gate's structure. With Vince taking photos from different angles, I could hear fragments of their conversation. Structural weak points make it look accidental, and most chilling of all, no one will question it. After the safety report, they were planning something big, and I was running out of time to stop them. Aaron showed up at my door the next morning with evidence that made everything click. "Look what I found by your gate," she said, holding up a decorative bobby pin with a distinctive pearl design. "It's Sheila's. She wore it at the last 3 HOA meetings. But here's the interesting part. There are scratches on the gate mechanism that match the pin's shape. She's been trying to jam your gate. We compared the scratches to the pin under a magnifying glass, and it was a perfect match. She's been planning this for weeks," Aaron continued. "I also found out that Vince Malone's repair shop, Sheila helped him get his business license when she worked in real estate. They go way back. The revelation should have made me feel victorious, but instead I felt the weight of exhaustion. These people were playing dirty, and I was trying to fight fair." Greg surprised.
"Me that afternoon by showing up at my door. I can't do this anymore,"
he said, his voice heavy with guilt. "Sheila wanted me to spread more lies about your gate claim. I saw it malfunction and almost hit my daughter. I refused. I'm done being her puppet. Ryan, I'm sorry for what I've already done." He handed me a copy of the fake safety report. She wrote it herself, just made me sign it. My daughter asked me why I was lying about our neighbor. How do you explain that to a 9-year-old? The confrontation at that evening's HOA meeting was explosive. I presented the bobby pin evidence and demanded answers. Sheila's composure finally cracked. "You're all idiots if you believe him," she shrieked, jumping up from her seat. "That gate is a menace, and I'll prove it even if I have to." She caught herself, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen the mass slip, but she recovered quickly, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You want to play hardball, Baxter? Fine, you'll regret crossing me." As the meeting ended, my hidden camera caught the final scene of the night. Sheila and
Vince by my gate, him holding the gas can while she hissed, "Burn it tonight," or Baxter's next. Her laugh was chilling, echoing in the darkness. "They're out to torch my gate. Can I catch them?" I didn't see how low Sheila could go, but Aaron and Walter kept me fighting when everything seemed lost. The morning after I caught Sheila and Vince with the gas, I woke up to find my worst nightmare had become reality. The gate was gone, not damaged, not vandalized, completely removed. In its place was
a notice from Vince's superior repair and removal company stating that the hazardous structure had been dismantled by order of the HOA Safety Committee. But that wasn't even the worst part. Attached to the notice was a bill for $5.00, already deducted from my bank account through some obscure HOA emergency action clause that Sheila had dug up from the association's bylaws. I stood there in my driveway coffee mug, slipping from my numb fingers, the hot liquid splashing across. My shoes as I stared at the empty space where my father's legacy had stood. The gate posts were gone. The mechanism vanished. Even the concrete footings had been jackhammered out, leaving ugly holes in the ground like missing teeth. Mrs. Carter walked by with her poodle, and instead of her usual polite nod, she actually laughed. "Guess you learned your lesson about crossing Sheila," she said with a smirk. "Maybe next time you'll follow the rules like the rest of us." Other neighbors passed by throughout the morning, some pointing and whispering, others openly gloating they think I'll back down, but I'm done playing nice Sheila's. Victory lap was as dramatic as everything else she did. She called another emergency meeting that evening, this time to discuss the successful resolution of the Baxter Gates situation. She stood at the podium wearing what looked like a new designer suit, probably bought with the HOA's emergency funds. "Thanks to swift action by your board," she announced, "the dangerous gate has been removed, protecting our children from harm. Mr. Baxter has been appropriately fined for the cost of removal and the damage to my vehicle." She paused for effect, her eyes finding mine in the crowd. "Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can defy the HOA's authority. We act in the best interests of the community, and we will not be intimidated." The lowest point came when I checked my bank account in detail. Not only had they taken $5.00 for the gate removal, but there were additional charges: $1,000 for the safety assessment, $1,500 for emergency administrative fees, and another $500 for community disruption penalties. My savings, the money I'd been putting aside to start my own business, was nearly wiped out. I sat at my kitchen table, head in my hands, my father's words echoing mockingly in my mind. "Never let them trample your rights." But what good were rights when the system was rigged against you? Greg texted me an apology.
"Sorry, man, she threatened to destroy my business. I have a family to feed." I stared at the framed photo on the wall. Dad and me at the warehouse the day he taught me inventory management. We'd planned to open our own logistics company, had even picked
out to name Baxter and Son Transport. Now that dream was drowning in Sheila's fabricated fees. $7. Zero washroom gone in a single morning, years of overtime shifts, weekend work, holidays sacrificed, all vanished into her corrupt HOA account. Walter appeared in the doorway, his weathered face etched with concern. "Ryan," he said quietly, "I've seen good men broken by less. But you're not alone in this fight, son." That's when Aaron and Walter became my lifeline. Aaron showed up at my door with a 6-pack of beer and a laptop full of evidence. "Sheila's fine killed my photography business last year," she confessed. Tears in her eyes, she filed complaints about my home studio, said it was a commercial operation in a residential zone. I lost 3 wedding contracts and went broke fighting her bogus citations, but I've been documenting everything she does, waiting for someone brave enough to stand up to her. She showed me folders full of photos, videos, and documents. "Look at this. Vince's repair company has done exclusive work for Sheila for 3 years. He renovated her entire house at a suspicious discount." Walter sat in his recliner, his weathered hands gripping a coffee mug with white knuckles. "You know, kid, this reminds me of '89 when I faced down a crooked police captain who was shaking down local businesses. Everyone said I couldn't win, said he had too much power, too many connections. But you know what? Bullies always make mistakes when they think they're untouchable. That captain, he's doing 20 to life now." He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Despite his age, Sheila thinks she's won, but she's gotten sloppy. Vince's crew is as shady as Sheila's lies, and sloppy crooks always leave trails. You'll win. Kid, we just need to find the right evidence. The evidence came sooner than expected while going through HOA financial documents that Aaron had somehow obtained. Don't ask how, she said with a wink. I found something incredible. There was a pattern of suspicious fines and fees, all following the same formula Sheila targets. Someone creates a violation, brings in Vince's company for the fix, and then pockets a percentage. The gate wasn't her first victim. Over the past 2 years, she'd run this scam on at least a dozen residents: the Johnsons' dangerous deck, the Petersons' non-compliant fence, the Yamada's hazardous garden shed, all demolished by Vince, all resulting in massive fines. The total take over $100, 0. But my discovery celebration was short-lived. That evening I received a certified letter from a law firm. Sheila was suing me for defamation, claiming I'd been spreading malicious lies about her character and damaging her reputation in the community. The letter referenced the HOA meeting where I'd called her a liar and mentioned her previous lawsuit for harassment. The damages she was seeking $50, 0. As I read the letter, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging, or your house is next. This is your only warning. When Aaron traced the number, it led back to a burner phone purchased at Surprise, a store that Vince's cousin owned. Standing in my empty driveway that night, looking at the holes where my gate once stood, I felt something shift inside me. The old Ryan might have given up, might have sold the house and moved away. But this wasn't just about a gate anymore. This was about my father's legacy, about standing up to bullies, about justice. They think I'll back down, I said to the darkness, but I'm done running. I started planning my counterattack, and that's when Aaron found something in Sheila's latest email. To the HOA board, hidden in the metadata, was evidence that would change everything. She'd been sending emails from dead people's accounts, and her latest message had a bombshell. Admission, gates gone, Baxter's house is next. She's targeting my house.
How do I fight back? I didn't know how much Sheila hurt Greg's family until he stood up. But let me recap where we stood. Sheila was hitting me with lies and lawsuits, but I was ready to hit back with something. She didn't expect the truth, the secret.
Meeting happened in Irene's garage, away from Sheila's prying eyes and hidden cameras. 23 neighbors showed up, more than I dared hope for. I stood before them with my laptop, my hands steady. Despite the storm inside me, Sheila's been stealing from all
of us. I began projecting the financial documents onto the garage wall. Here's proof of her kickback scheme with Vince's company. Here's evidence of fraudulent fines. And here I clicked to the next slide is an email where she admits to planning to take my house. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Mrs. Peterson started crying when she saw the documentation about her fence. That fence was my husband's last project before he died.
She said Sheila told me it was a safety hazard, that I could be sued if a child got hurt. I paid $8,000 in fines and removal costs. Mr. Yamada stood up, his face red with anger. She did the same to my garden. Shed said it violated setback requirements. My grandfather built that shed in 1962, one by one. Neighbors shared their stories, and the pattern became undeniable. Sheila had been systematically targeting properties, inventing violations, and profiting from the misery she created. But Sheila wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I was served with new legal papers. This time it wasn't just a defamation lawsuit she was claiming. I'd stolen HOA property and damaged her personal computer to access confidential information. The amount, $10,000 in damages plus criminal charges. The evidence was laughably thin. She claimed I'd hacked into her email when in reality she'd accidentally sent messages to the wrong distribution list. But in her panic, she was making mistakes the lawyer's letter. Head looked off, and when Walter's cop friend ran a check, we discovered the attorney didn't exist. The bar number was fake. The address led to an empty office, and the phone number went to a pizza place. The text messages started coming fast and furious. Drop the investigation or face consequences. Your job is next. Nice house. Shame. If something happened to it all from different numbers. But Aaron's tech-savvy friend traced them back to the same source. A phone registered to Vince's business. I was in my garage fixing what was left of my gate mechanism, more out of stubbornness than hope. When Greg Sullivan pulled up in his truck, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under his eyes, and his usually neat appearance disheveled.
"I can't take it anymore,"
he said, his voice breaking. "Sheila screamed at my daughter yesterday, called her a brat for asking why I lied about your gate." Greg handed me a folder with shaking hands. "This is the original safety report. I wrote the real one your gate passed. Every single safety requirement Sheila made me write the fake one, but I kept the original. I also recorded her threatening me." He pulled out his phone and played the recording. Sheila's voice was crystal clear. "You'll sign what I tell you to sign, Greg, or I'll make sure your shop fails every inspection from now until you're bankrupt. Don't test me. I've destroyed bigger men."
Then knew the recording also caught her saying something even more damning, that gate is perfectly safe, but Baxter needs to learn his place. This is about power, not safety. She looked at me with those big brown eyes. Greg continued, his voice cracking.
"And asked if lying was okay when adults tell you to. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, what kind of example am I setting? What kind of world am I leaving her?" He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "That's when I knew I had to make this right. I won't let my daughter grow up in a neighborhood ruled by fear. She deserves better. We all deserve better than Sheila's reign of terror." The revelation about my father's connection to the gate hit me harder than any of Sheila's attacks. While going through old papers, I found the original plans for the gate. My dad had designed it himself. Spent months perfecting every detail. There were notes in the margins for Ryan, so he always has a safe place to come home to. The gate wasn't just a security feature. It was his last gift to me, installed just weeks before he died. "This gate's all I've got left of him," I told Walter. That night, my voice thick with emotion, he put a weathered hand on my shoulder. "Then we fight for it, kid. Your dad wouldn't quit, and neither will we. The gate's still there, her SUV not so much." De Walter's police connections finally paid off in a big way. His old partner, Detective Morrison, couldn't officially investigate HOA matters, but he could look into fraud allegations. "Your neighbor's got quite a history," Morrison told us over coffee. 3 harassment lawsuits in Clifton, 2 in Riverside, and a criminal investigation for embezzlement that mysteriously disappeared when key witnesses recanted. "She's smart, knows how to work the system, but she's also getting desperate. Desperate people make fatal mistakes." He leaned in closer. "Keep documenting everything. When she finally crossed the line, and she will be ready." The turning point came when I overheard Sheila in the community center parking lot. She was in her car, windows down, typing furiously on her phone. I pretended to check my mail while recording with my phone. "Helen's fake ID will take his land for good," she muttered, apparently talking to herself while composing an email. "Nobody questions emails from dead board members. The emergency seizure vote will pass before anyone realizes Helen died. 3 years ago, her phone screen glowed in the evening darkness, illuminating her face twisted with concentration. She was so focused on her scheme that she didn't notice me standing 10 feet away. She's trying to steal my land. Can I expose her first? I never thought Sheila's panic would hand me the knockout blow, but sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. The emergency HOA meeting was called for Friday night. supposedly to vote on urgent safety measures regarding the Baxter property. What Sheila didn't know was that we were ready for her. Aaron had spent days analyzing the email headers from the mysterious Helen Mitchell, who'd been sending violation notices. Helen had been the HOA secretary, a sweet elderly woman who died 3 years ago, but, according to the emails, she was very active for a dead person, sending notices, seconding motions, and supporting every one of Sheila's power grabs from beyond the grave. The meeting started like all the others with Sheila at the podium in her powers suit. "Radiating false authority, ladies and gentlemen," she began. "We've received serious complaints about the Baxter property from concerned board members." She clicked to a slide showing an email from Helen Mitchell, our late secretary. Our secretary Helen has documented multiple violations that require immediate action, including a motion to seize the property for repeated safety infractions. She'd slipped up, almost saying late secretary, but recovered quickly. Or so she thought. What she didn't realize was that in her haste to send that fake email, she'd made a catastrophic error. I stood up slowly, my phone in hand. "Interesting email from Helen," I said, keeping my voice steady, especially since she died 3 years ago. "But what's really interesting is this." I projected my phone screen onto the wall, showing the HOA group chat there. In black and white was a message from Sheila's personal account sent just 2 hours ago. "No one suspects Helen. The vote will pass, and Baxter's land will be HOA property by midnight." The room gasped collectively. Sheila's face went from red to white to green in the span of 3 seconds. She'd meant to send that message to Vince, but had accidentally posted it to the community group chat instead. That's fake." Sheila stammered, her composure cracking like thin ice. "Someone hacked my account. This is another of Baxter's lies," but the evidence was overwhelming. Aaron stood up next, holding a folder thick with documents. I have copies of 37 emails from Helen Mitchell's account, all sent after her death, all supporting Sheila's motions, all originating from IP addresses traced to Sheila's home and office. Greg Sullivan added his voice. "And I have the real safety reports plus recordings of Sheila threatening me to write false ones." One by one, neighbors stood up with their own evidence: fraudulent fines, forged documents, threatening messages. Sheila's meltdown was spectacular. She grabbed the podium microphone, knuckles white, screaming, "You're all fools! I've kept this neighborhood running. I've maintained property values without me. This place would be chaos." She started throwing papers in the air, HOA documents fluttering like snow. "You want to side with him, fine, but you'll regret this when your houses are worthless and your streets are full of garbage." She kicked a chair, sending it sliding across the floor. "I made this neighborhood what it is. You owe me everything." Her perfectly styled hair had come undone, and her designer's suit was disheveled. This wasn't the composed HOA president anymore. This was a tyrant watching her empire crumble. The best part came when Walter's friend Detective Morrison walked in, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers. "Mrs. Thornton," he said calmly, "we've received multiple complaints of fraud, harassment, and identity theft. We'll need you to come with us for questioning." Sheila's face went pale. You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. I have immunity." Morrison almost smiled. "That's not how it works, ma'am. Also, your vehicle is illegally parked in the fire lane. We'll need to tow it." Sheila ran to the window just in time to see a tow truck driven by one of Walter's old buddies hooking up her pristine white
"SUV, no," she shrieked, running outside in her heels. "That's my car. You can't take it. I'm the president." But the tow truck driver just shrugged. Fire lane's a fire lane. Lady should have followed the rules. As her SUV was lifted onto the truck bed, I couldn't
help myself. I walked up to Sheila, who was now standing in the parking lot, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Funny how things work out," I said. The gate still there, her SUV not so much. She spun around, her face contorted with rage. "This isn't—"
Over Baxter, I'll destroy you. I'll take everything you have.
But her threats were empty now as the police led her away for questioning. She made one last desperate move. "Check your email, Baxter," she screamed. "You think you've won? Check your email." I pulled out my phone and found a message titled, "You're done." It was another fake complaint, this one claiming I'd threatened HOA board members and vandalized property. But in her panic, she'd sent it from her personal email, not Helen's account. It was the final nail in her coffin, proving she'd been behind all the fake messages. The attachment included her entire plan laid out in detail, including plans to seize not just my property, but 3 others on the ranch road. The neighbors erupted in celebration as Sheila was driven away, her designer image shattered, her SUV impounded, her schemes exposed. Mrs. Carter, who'd mocked me just days ago, actually apologized. I was scared of her. She admitted we all were, but you stood up to her. Aaron was already uploading videos to social media, and Greg was calling an emergency vote to remove Sheila from the board. But I knew this wasn't quite over. People like Sheila don't give up easily. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with one last message from an unknown number: "You'll lose everything." But looking around,
At my neighbors finally free from Sheila's tyranny, I knew she was wrong. Sheila's got one last shot. Can I finish her? I didn't dream one gate could unite a neighborhood, but standing in City Hall the next morning, watching Sheila's empire crumble,
I realized some battles are worth fighting. The municipal hearing room was packed to capacity with neighbors filling every seat and lining the walls. Sheila sat at the defendant's table, her usually perfect appearance gone. Her designer suit was wrinkled, her makeup smeared from a night in custody, and her hands trembled as she clutched a stack of papers. The city prosecutor had compiled a devastating case: 37 counts of fraud, 12 counts of identity theft, and enough evidence of embezzlement to put her away for years. But Sheila wasn't going down quietly. "This is a conspiracy," she screamed, jumping up from her chair. "Ryan Baxter orchestrated all of this. He hacked my emails. He turned everyone against me." She grabbed at the prosecutor's documents, trying to tear them up. But court security stepped in. I was protecting property values. I was maintaining standards. These people, she
waved wildly at the crowd. They're too stupid to understand what I was doing for them. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Smith, had clearly seen enough. "Mrs. Thornton, you'll sit down and remain silent, or I'll add contempt charges to your—"
growing list of problems. When I took the stand to present our evidence, I kept it simple and factual. The fake emails from Helen Mitchell's account, the forged safety reports, the kickback scheme with Vince's company, the recorded threats, the financial documents showing over $100,000 in fraudulent fines. "Your Honor," I said, holding up the original plans for my gate, "this wasn't about safety or property values. This was about power and profit." Mrs. Thornton weaponized the HOA system to terrorize residents and line her pockets. The crowd murmured in agreement, and I saw several neighbors wiping away tears as they remembered their own losses to Sheila's schemes. The moment that broke Sheila completely was when Greg Sullivan testified. His voice was steady now, no longer shaking with fear. "Sheila Thornton threatened my business and frightened my 9-year-old daughter," he said. "She forced me to write false reports and lie to my neighbors. But the worst part, she enjoyed it. She took pleasure in making
people suffer." She played the recording of Sheila's threat, her voice filling the courtroom. destroyed bigger men than you." The judge's face hardened with each word. When Greg finished, Sheila tried one last desperate gambit, screaming, "He's lying!"
They're all lying. But then the prosecutor pulled up the group chat message where she'd accidentally revealed her Helen Mitchell scheme. Sheila collapsed into her chair as her own words were read aloud. "No one suspects Helen, the vote will pass. And Baxter's land will be HOA property. By midnight, the judge didn't need to deliberate long. Mrs. Thornton," she said, her voice stern, "you've shown a pattern of deception, intimidation, and theft that shocks the conscience. You abused a position of trust to prey on your neighbors. Effective immediately. You're removed from any HOA position and barred from serving on any homeowner association." In this state, the criminal charges would be handled separately, but the message was clear. Sheila's reign of terror was over. As security escorted her out, she turned to glare at me one last time, but her eyes were empty of their old fire. The victory celebration started that afternoon, in my backyard, with the smell of barbecue smoke and the sound of laughter filling the air. Walter had invited what seemed like half his old precinct, and they'd brought enough food to feed an army. "You did good, kid," he said, flipping burgers with the precision of a master. "Your dad would be proud you didn't just save your gate. You freed a whole neighborhood." He pointed to where neighbors were mingling, many talking to each other for the first time in years. That's what happens when someone stands up to a bully. It reminds everyone else they can stand to. The transformations were remarkable. Mrs. Carter, who'd mocked me just a week ago, brought her famous potato salad and apologized. "Again, I was a coward," she admitted. "Sheila had us all so scared we forgot we outnumbered her. Greg Sullivan was there with his family, his daughter playing with other kids, no longer afraid. I should have stood up sooner," he said, shaking my hand. "Thanks for showing me how." Even the Petersons and Yamadas, who had lost so much to Sheila's schemes, were smiling again. The neighborhood felt different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. People were actually talking to each other instead of hiding behind closed doors. Aaron had turned our victory into viral content. Her video compilation of Sheila's meltdown, titled "HOA President Goes Nuclear When Exposed," had already hit 1 million views. "You're famous," she laughed, showing me the comments. People from across the country were sharing their own HOA horror stories and praising our neighborhood for fighting back the gate. Still there, her SUV not so much had become a meme, with people using it to caption photos of their own small victories against bullies. But more importantly, our story was inspiring others to stand up to corrupt HOA boards in their own communities. As the sun set and the party wound down, I stood by my rebuilt gate. Yes, I'd reinstalled it that morning, with help from half the neighborhood. It wasn't just a gate anymore, it was a symbol of resistance against tyranny. Walter joined me, beer in hand. "You know what the best part is?" he said, with a grin. "Sheila's SUV is still in the impound lot. She can't get it out until she pays all her fines, including the ones she illegally collected from everyone else. Poetic justice." We laughed, but then his expression turned serious. "You reminded me why I became a cop in the first place, to protect people from bullies like her." "I'm proud of you, son." But just as I thought our story was over, a letter arrived that changed everything. It was from a law firm in the neighboring town of Riverside, addressed to me personally. "Mr. Baxter," it read, "your successful action against Sheila Thornton has come to our attention. We represent several homeowners in Riverside Estates who are facing similar harassment from their HOA board, led by someone we believe you should know about, Mr. Maxwell. He's already aware of your victory and has vowed. To put you in your place, we'd like to discuss joining forces." A yellow sticky note fell out of the envelope with handwriting that sent chills down my spine. "You beat one, can you beat us all?" I looked at the note, then at my gate, standing proud and strong, and couldn't help but smile whatever Maxwell thought.
He could do. He'd better think again. This neighborhood had tasted freedom and we weren't going back. Walter read the note over my shoulder and chuckled. Looks like you started something bigger than just saving a gate. I folded the letter and put
It in my pocket tomorrow. I'd call that law firm. Tonight I was going to enjoy the peace we'd earned. The gate still there, her SUV gone.